Nah, cool. So yeah, first couple of questions. If you could introduce yourself, who you are, what you do at BrandAlley, that'd be great. Good place to start.
Okay, cool. So my name is Andrew Webber. I am the Director of Marketing at BrandAlley. I have been at BrandAlley for about 18 months. During that period of time, bringing together data and marketing has been a really important part of the role. Getting increasingly particularly in this economy as well, like understanding who your customers are, where the revenue is coming from, which channels are providing the best return on investment. All of those things have become increasingly important, I think, for a lot of brands in these kind of market conditions. So bringing together marketing and data, which is kind of my background, was really a big part of the role, and has been a kind of a daily occurrence for me, is looking at how we can do that better.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. So next question: what specific challenges or pain points were you dealing with at BrandAlley, and how were these limiting some of the business outcomes that you were seeing?
So the sort of pain points that we're dealing with at BrandAlley on a regular basis, really, I think are quite common across a lot of e-com businesses, and they are things that really keep the commercial side of the business up at night as well. So a lot of those would be, we have a big customer database, but increasingly we found ourselves using performance money and performance channels to drive orders, not new customers. And I think when businesses are increasingly revenue focused, as a lot of people have been in the last kind of couple of years in particular, you end up chasing orders, chasing revenue, and not really thinking about the growth of the business. Obviously, a lot of that digital money you want to be putting into driving new customers that then incrementally drive growth, and that creates that kind of compound revenue opportunity that the more customers continually bring. When you're using that money to spend on current customers to return, that's a really inefficient way to spend the kind of marketing money. And I think for us, that's been a challenge for a couple of years, and I think it's something that we've had to get really deep into the data of and look at. Why is it that 15% of our really loyal customers who are buying from us 11 times a year, why are they coming back through sort of Google search terms, for example? So, looking at and how much money is that costing us ultimately when really they know who BrandAlley are, they understand what they're looking for, they know what they're searching for. There's no reason for us to be paying for those people to return. So, that was costing us, depending on the month, anywhere between sort of 15, 20, 25,000 pounds a month, that really should have been moved up to focus on acquiring new customers who are going to obviously bolster the customer numbers and bolster that revenue with return purchase. So that's a really big challenge that we've been facing for quite a while, and understanding not just which channels are providing customers to return, which channels are providing new customers, but also understanding where can we start to focus our spend better. And a lot of that was about how do we exclude certain customer groups from our activity, whether that be Meta, whether that be Google, even in some of our affiliate partners as well, looking to make sure that we're focusing much more on that spend on new customers. And I think the CDP was really important for us in terms of trying to orchestrate how we reached new customers on owned channels, particularly email. It's a big while we await our app launch, which will be in the next few months. Email is a really important channel for us, so we want to make sure that we're maximizing that from a retention point of view, and keeping that the budget that we've assigned for more digital channels, that are traditionally more acquisition channels, are doing a lot more heavy lifting when it comes to new customers.
Cool. Okay, so what motivated you to choose DinMo in particular?
So when we were looking at the CDPs generally across the market, what motivated me to get DinMo in from a proof of concept point of view, and then obviously, from there to get you guys really integrated across the full kind of channel and stack, really, was whenever I was having a conversation with the team about what we were doing. My background is segmentation. I used to sell segmentation solutions to different businesses. The that we would create ourselves, and we would use a variety of different data sources for that. And I really found that when I was talking to really anyone at DinMo, they really understood what we were trying to achieve. It wasn't an enterprise sales conversation. It was about what data we had, what we were trying to connect together, what we were trying to do with it. I think what I also tipped the scales a little bit for me is that BrandAlley moves incredibly quickly. I've never seen a business move as quick as it does here. And I think for us, getting bogged down in a really deep conversation where we're mapping out all kinds of things, and it's a really huge expense for the business, I just knew that the appetite to do a lengthy conversation from a sales point of view, and a lengthy conversation about how we were going to afford it, and all of those types of things that you need to business case up an awful lot, and it takes a lot of time. And I really find at BrandAlley that time is in short supply. Everything moves quick. We're trading heavily all the time, and I think one of the big things that I enjoyed was the fact that you guys really understood what we were trying to do, and I think also we realised that getting it in quickly would be relatively straightforward and simple to do, and we would be able to do a proof of concept that showed value really quickly. And I think in a business where it's always very difficult, I think when a business is quite cost focused, trying to turn that conversation from cost to investment can be quite tricky. And I think it's much easier to do that when you can stand something up fast, you can prove a value really quickly. And I think also is from a cost point of view, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. We're talking something that you can test and you can get a return from relatively quickly. And I think that to me made it quite a simple decision for me, just because I knew it would also be a simple decision when I moved it up the chain from a finance kind of sign-off point of view. So that was an important part of my decision making, was that I knew the appetite for taking on heavy investment was going to be probably limited in an area that they hadn't invested in before. So I really did, putting those two things together, speed of decision plus speed of implementation, that was really important. And I think that's proved to have been the right choice 100%.
Cool. So, Andrew, what did the implementation process look like? And was there anything in this process that we did to make this as easy as possible for you guys?
Yeah, I think that was also, like I said before, I think from an implementation point of view, like how easy it was going to be and how quick we could show value was a really important part of the decision making. And I think we've got some really smart technical marketers as well as good tech teams here, but also we are, we're not blessed with an enormous amount of resource either. So picking a partner that meant that it was going to be working together on that, and it was going to be, you guys were going to do a lot of that lifting for us was really important. But so we had 2 weeks obviously to kind of get it in, get some data connected up, get some data moving between channels, and ultimately show value. And I think what was really interesting to me was that when we spoke to our email platform about getting a CDP in, we were obviously quite deep in conversation with you guys already at this point, and I think we'd already started the proof of concept at that point, and they immediately said that we need to do a couple of weeks of conversations, we needed professional services in, we needed to map out what was needed, what the solution was, and whether they could provide something, etc., all of which would have cost us money. And I think what was great was to be able to go back to them and say, we don't need to do all of that because we've already got data in your platform. So within a week of talking to them about all the necessary things that they would need to do, and obviously would cost us a lot of money, we'd done an integration with you guys already, and we already had moved data into their platform. And that took only a couple of days to set up. And I think to be able to move from getting guys in, signing off, to moving data between channels within 48 hours, like we didn't activate that campaign. That was just to show that the data would move in the way that we expected. But we could have activated that campaign within a couple of days, really, to show that we were doing segmentation and customer understanding in a more kind of central place than just in the different disparate channels. I think the other thing that was really great for us was that some of the integrations were already set up, hence we were able to do that in 48 hours. But One of the channels that's really important to us at the moment is SMS. It works really hard for us, and I think the fact that during that implementation we discussed SMS, and you guys didn't have a integration set up with that platform at that time. It wasn't ready out of the box, but by the time we were kind of a week or two into that proof of concept, you'd already worked with them to create that integration. And I think that showed us as well that you were very committed to making sure that we had everything we needed to orchestrate in the middle and actually push across all the different channels and really kind of join up marketing in a much more effective way than we'd ever really done before.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thanks. Andrew, what measurable results have you seen since you've adopted DinMo as a solution in your MarTech stack?
So one of the big things about BrandAlley is we're looking at numbers every hour, every day, every week, every month. Like we're very close to the numbers all the time on a channel level, on a sales level, on a margin level. Like there's a lot of numbers that we look at all the time. And I think one of the core things, as I said, when it came to getting DinMo into the stack was really how we can stop spending money on existing customers to drive, stop using our acquisition money to drive orders from existing customers. And the first thing that we realized that as soon as we switched over, we started to exclude some of our highly engaged customers from Google, in particular Google, because we could see that they're coming through paid search a lot. That enabled us to move that money out, and it ultimately resulted in just, I think, around 89% uplift straight away in our organic search results, particularly for that group. So I think the big movement there was that we were then able to repurpose that money. Now that we were happy that more of our highly engaged customers were coming through lower cost activity, we were able to move that money quite quickly up to top of funnel work, category level work as well, to try and drive new customers in to the business. And that has meant that we have started to see a bit of an upswing again now, and the trend is moving upwards in that respect. And that's because we're able to really focus on making that money work harder from a new customer ROAS point of view, rather than just looking at a blended return on ad spend across the whole funnel. I think one of the other areas that I think has been really important is really helping the team to think more holistically about how we talk to customers across the channels and who wants to be spoken to on what channel, and how is that meant from a marketing team point of view. We have people that are now working across multiple channels who might have been, say, a CRM specialist who's now actually working across performance and CRM as well. And she's really thinking about the customer across both, bringing the customers in, but also making sure the journeys and the segments that she is creating in DinMo reflect the strategies we've got to bring customers in, and what's that next step to get them kind of to be retained. And she's thinking much more across the whole journey now. And I think that's been great from a career progression point of view for her. But I think DinMo's really enabled us to join up the acquisition journey with the retention journey in a much more holistic way, but also in a much more linear way. So it's really simple for people to understand. So for example, if somebody first purchases a dress, for example, and they've come in on an advert that we've put in front of people that we know are more likely to purchase that type of product, if she can then really look at building a segments in DinMo so that reflect the product that somebody's come in on, and making sure that the welcome journey that they receive is actually much more flavoured around that product that they've come in on. And that therefore has made it much easier for us to start driving that second purchase, because we also know that if people come in on a particular product, the next product is actually most likely to be a similar product again. So again, it's just bringing that acquisition and retention journey together. It's really making the team work much smoother, but I think ultimately we'll get much more cumulative return on the spend, because we'll be able to drive the lifetime value up of the people based on how they've entered into the kind of ecosystem of the company.
Awesome.
In terms of that use case of simply removing that spend on that audience that we know are active in BrandAlley, they're engaged, they come back regularly, and actually just turning that off, suppressing that audience, that alone saved us the within 2 or 3 months, we were able to make a media saving that actually paid for the whole year of using the DinMo platform. So I think, and that's before we start putting that into higher return areas and driving new customers. So I think just as a cost saving exercise, it immediately added up. And I think now we've got more budget to kind of move towards new customers, and that will have a much more kind of compound kind of growth for us.
Fantastic. That's great. Thanks, Andrew.
I think where DinMo's really helped us, or will help us going forward is that moving that strategy forwards that we've started, which is really identifying which are the categories that bring in the highest lifetime value customers, and really building all the spend that we put out there around those categories. That obviously fluctuates during different seasons, but we know there's kind of 10 to 12 core categories that bring in the highest value customers who are most likely to come back and most likely to spend high margin kind of money with us. So I think ultimately where DinMo will really help us push that forward is we're able to build messaging and different ad treatments that will go out onto different channels to attract those customers in. But as soon as those customers have joined, we've built segments that dynamically populate so that if somebody comes in via one route, they will automatically get put onto a kind of a journey to kind of move them to the next purchase based on that and based on what product they're most likely to buy next. So I think it's enabled us to really think about what used to be termed like next best action. What's the next best action for that customer? We've been able to really start thinking as a marketing team, what's the best way to move someone from 0 to 1 purchases, and then once they've done that, what's the best way to move them from 1 to 2 purchases? And I think that really is where we will start to try and build a much healthier retention program. And I think DinMo really sits at the heart of that.
That's awesome. That's really great. Cool. The final question, but it's more just around looking a little bit in the next 6-12 months. What are your marketing priorities, and how are you thinking about DinMo to support those? And if that's possible. I don't know if you don't have anything on that because you haven't thought about it because you're scurrying.
It's probably more of that really, and I think the big thing for me is obviously I'm not going to be here, so they might change, but I think really doubling down on that is going to be the next year is going to be focusing, joining all of that kind of stuff up. So I think it would probably end up being the same answer. Fine.
Okay. That's totally fine then. Awesome. Actually, I think that's everything from my side. I think that's really, really great. So thank you, Andrew, so much for that. We really appreciate it. But actually, is there anything else you think that we need to touch on again, or all okay?
Yeah, a pleasure to work with you. My just random question for you is, do you know what DinMo stands for?
No.
Do you want to have a guess?
I feel like the M and the O is modular, and it also is it French. So is that kind of like messing with me slightly? It's not. It's full English. Is it like letters? Is it like an acronym? It's a phrase, and the D is capital for a reason, and the M is capital for a reason. So I feel like it's modular at the end. I don't know what this. It's data in motion. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. I'm always curious because I'm surprised how people don't know it, but I think it adds some context for the name DinMo, since otherwise. For sure. And it makes sense. Awesome. Okay. Underneath, you should really have that underneath, by the way. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna clip that specifically.
We just added it to one of our newsletters, and I think it's great.
You should underneath DinMo on the logo, just that underneath. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. But if it's any consolation, I didn't know this until at least 6 months after I was working. But it's great. It makes a lot of sense. So.
Nice.
Awesome. Andrew, thank you so much. Honestly, really appreciate it.
No worries.